Hey, welcome to the Third Growth Option Podcast, where we talk about all things growth. Yes, even and especially those hard parts, where you shed some skin and pick yourself up by the bootstraps. Hey, I'm Duenkelsbuehler, Growth Sherpa and OG #Growth Nerd. We're on a mission to redefine success inside and outside the business, one TGO episode at a time.
Hi, this is Hilda Castillo, and this is the TGO podcast.
And I'm Benno, the host of TGO podcast, Truth in Advertising. Hilda and I have been married for 26 years. We are partners in life and partners in business, and we align with the podcast. Hilda is also the founder of Black Sheep Law Firm in Mexico City. We're both doing this podcast together from Mexico City today. And what we want to talk about is the topic of young entrepreneurs. How do we help young people become entrepreneurs? The job market today is very different than it was when I was 25 years old, when Hilda was 25 years old. Let's talk about the job market a little bit.
It's cooling down. It's cooling down. And according to some stats in the States, 4 in 10 recent college grads are currently underemployed.
Underemployed.
Yeah. But that's a big number when you think you spend all that money paying for college and you are, underemployed. I don't know if you drive DoorDash or you work in a restaurant and you have a bachelor's degree. So how good is really to have that bachelor's degree if you cannot even find a job for what you studied, or even not going to develop something with your studies? I mean, we have to question that. We have to. I'm worried about kids these days because, as you know it, and everybody knows it, Social Security is going to be gone. And if you don't get a stable job in a stable company like P&G, for example, you would have no. I mean,
and that idea of a stable job, right? Like working for Procter and Gamble or Coca-Cola or whatever
it's
big
gone.
company, that's gone, right? I mean,
it's gone.
Like I remember being in college and all these Fortune 50 companies came on campus to recruit. And the big goal was to get a management internship program with a Fortune 50 company. And then, over the last 20, 30, 40 years, that idea from working for one or two companies and then you get a golden watch at age 65 is gone, right? I mean, the average tenure in a job, is closer to 3 years, not 30 years.
But that is because you have to change jobs every 2 or 3 years, right, to get knowledge, to move forward with your salary, to get a better title, it is the right thing to move every 2 to 3 years to get your salary going.
Right.
So but to have a stable job on a stable city, it is difficult. That is not there anymore. And I think even in technology companies, they are slashing jobs because now they have AI. So I think that there are several points that are important to young people. They do need to have a job to learn and to have the capacity to understand how, the influence in a company matters, and basically to learn. But after that, they need to start having a sidekick that can grow into something else.
So let's talk about our two daughters, right? 19 and 24 years old. The 19-year-old is in the middle of her undergrad studies in computer engineering. The 24-year-old Alexis is finished her bachelor's degree, is doing a law degree, going to law school right now, working with me part-time, working with you part-time. Both of them are trying to, and we are actively encouraging them to get side gigs, side hustles, because people talk about the gig economy and more freelance. And what do you think is from the girls' perspective, from our girls' perspective, what do you think is, what are we doing that is helping them the most, or what could we do to help them more in this new environment?
I think the most important thing that a parent can do is develop their abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So most people that I know, Mexican and in the States, they want their children to be a doctor, they want their children to be lawyers, but maybe their children are not fit for that life, and they forget to develop abilities and emotional intelligence that are important to develop a gig.
Mm-hmm.
Because in any gig, like it or not, they're going to have to do things that they don't like. And I don't think parents are developing that part of a child, of an intelligence of a child. So I think that is the most important thing.
So when you talk about adaptability, is that the word you used? Or
Yeah.
you said ability, right? But I think it's
Yes,
both adaptability, ability,
it's both.
creativity.
Oh, listen, in the States, in Mexico, and in every country, I always look at Germany when I speak to these, because in Germany, a carpenter is a good carpenter because they have trade schools.
Right.
And a carpenter is no different from a lawyer. I'm sorry, but it's not. I don't know how to do what a carpenter does. And from a good carpenter, yeah, no, I mean, we have to develop those skills for children that do not want to go to college, but have some other trade.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a valuable trade that every country needs, and it's going extinct, and we are not seeing it.
And
So,
I think that's a super interesting point about trade schools, right? The trades,
mhm,
plumber,
mhm,
carpenter,
mhm,
mechanic, those trades are, we're sort of neglected, I think, for decades. Certainly
they
in the
are.
States, Germany has done a good job
Mhm,
with trade
mhm,
schools, but I think the trade of being an entrepreneur and thinking entrepreneurially, and sort of having the guts to go out there,
mhm,
find a problem, find a need,
mhm,
and then create a solution for it, and have the confidence to do that. As it's also it's also a craft and a trade that
mhm,
we are encouraging our daughters to gain and to learn,
mhm,
and
mhm,
to get the confidence,
mhm,
right, to
mhm.
face a problem and say, gee, I really don't know what all is entailed here. I don't have all the answers, and that's okay, but let me really understand what the different problems are, and then let's throw some solutions against the wall. Let's talk to each other about creating a solution. I
But
mean,
we
that's
have to understand that in the States and in Mexico, there's no time. There's no family time. There is no time to find those, you know, to find those abilities to chat. Time is empty in both countries. You have to dedicate time to
you have to
develop
be
these
intentional. You have to be
intentional,
intentional
intentional,
about.
and you have to, you really have to think about this, and to develop emotional intelligence. Everybody puts emotional intelligence on the side. Nobody cares about it, but you have to have it. And that is something that you have to have emotional intelligence, and you have to have education
Right.
in whatever, in whatever state, but you need both. You can have an education at a community college, you can have education at Coursera, which it is valid. It is valid to say, I don't like to go to school, but I'm going to get some small diplomas that will get me through, getting a job, or take some pottery class and sell my pottery in the market, something like that. And as parents, I don't think we dedicate enough time to develop that. That is something that we just don't.
I think all of our lives, have become too compartmentalized, right? There's, if you're, whether you're a single or a double income family, mom and dad go to work, kids go to school. Maybe there's mealtime, maybe there isn't mealtime. Maybe we spend weekends together, or maybe we just, take them from the soccer tournament to the taekwondo tournament to the next one, blah, blah, blah. But unless we spend time as a family also talking about work and also talking about ways that they can take their, high school diploma or college degree and apply it in some kind of entrepreneurial, creative way. I'm not discouraging our kids or anybody from taking whatever job, sort of W-2 payroll job. That's great, but let's also have a side gigs. Let's have a side hustle, and teach them some of the business basics that, in a big corporation, if they're stuck in a specialty, in a department, in accounting or in research or in operations or in marketing, they're not going to learn the basics of business. And working, our daughters working with either or both of us in our firms are learning basic stuff about, hey, we need a business plan. What's the budget? Do we have money for this? Should we spend more money on that? And I think your point about emotional intelligence, what struck me there is, well, beside the fact that you have more emotional intelligence than I do, and you always harass me about not having enough, and you're teaching me to have more, which I appreciate. But I think your point about emotional intelligence is becoming more and more and more important as AI takes over more and more capabilities, flexes its
But it's
muscles.
okay. It's okay. But the
because
problem,
that's one thing that AI does not have emotional intelligence.
That's correct. But it is okay that I don't have anything against AI taking over things. I am okay with that because I know how to use it. What I see is that now kids want to just ask AI, and AI gives you a general, it spits out general information. You still have to, learn how to train it. And the important thing is that kids that are going out of college need, and that is, I need to say this, they need to be able to train an AI chatbot or anything. They need to be able to train artificial intelligence. It's going to become like Microsoft, like using Microsoft or Excel. You need to be able to use it. You need to be able to train it, and you need
What
to
do
be
you mean
able
by
to
train?
come up.
You need to train AI.
So you can train it in different ways. Like different AIs have different information. For example, ChatGPT. I can ask ChatGPT, can you draft a petroleum contract? And it will do that. The information is not absolutely correct, but if I train it, if I put laws in it, and if I ask the right questions, AI will start learning from all the questions and start digging. And if I say, well, I'm going to input this law that just came out, right, ChatGPT will get trained with my questions in my subject. So right, it's an absolute need that kids start training ChatGPT.
So okay, now I get what you mean by training Chat GPT.
Uh-huh.
You're basically, like, another way to say that is to say we need to ask the right questions of AI
But
for it to
in
give us
AI
more
language is
applicable.
training.
Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough. But I'm using the 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 human language of we need to ask good questions, because I think, in my line of work, helping companies grow new, channels of distribution or new adjacent product categories or what have you. We work with owners and executives of mid-sized companies where, half the battle is asking them the right question so that together we can come up with the right answer. Because the client, the reason they bring us in is because they're so used to, they do what they do all day long. They've been doing it for 5 years or 20 or 35 years, and they forgot to ask some of the important questions, right? And so I think it's this, and you do that as a lawyer, right? I mean, you have to ask your client the right questions to.
Correct. But yes, I do have to ask the right questions. But in this era, I think for asking the right questions, you have emotional intelligence, education, and then you can trade your chat GPT. So, but it's like, I think in some colleges, they are scared for the kids to use artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
In some colleges, they say, no, you have to use, ChatGPT, and it won't matter, but you have to use it because I think it's a tool that you have to start using.
Mm-hmm.
And also kids need to start learning about personal finances, because some of them have credit and then they don't know what to do with it. They don't know where the buckets that are
I
available
mean,
to
they have
them,
credit, like a credit line, credit
like a
card.
credit
Yeah,
line.
yeah.
Or, I mean, even an 18-year-old, they get the first credit card, and then you know it's a $2,000 limit, and they think that they can spend $2,000 without having $2,000. But that is something that they are not teaching in any college,
Right.
in any school, in any. I haven't seen a personal finance class. In
Mm-hmm.
Mexico, they used to have a personal finance class, and they taught you about, well, you have to, have a salary and pay taxes, and, and see the function of the government.
Mm-hmm.
They need to know how the government function. If you do not know how the government function, you will have big roadblocks as a business
You'll
owner.
you'll vote for the wrong party.
Well, you can vote for whoever you want. I
Mm-hmm.
think the vote is a right that you have to exercise, and
Mm-hmm.
that is your right, and you will exercise the way you want to exercise it. But if you do not know how the government works, you're cooked. I
Right.
don't see future in that. And most people do not know how Congress work, or how you get how the elections work, and that is another part of being an entrepreneur. You need to know where your country is going, to see what pieces
What
of
your
the
place
puzzle are
within
going to
the
meet.
country is, right?
Well, yes, and what pieces of your business are you going to move? What pieces are you going to keep? And they don't know that.
Right.
They don't know how it works.
Talk a little bit about the gigs that Alexis and Julia have been involved in, and maybe does one jump to your mind that's been particularly eye-opening for them or helpful for them?
Well, I usually take them to do adulting. It's just going to the government agencies and and file for the taxes or opening a bank account or
Right.
see how the government admits, in litigation, how you can file online litigation
Right.
paperwork. That is eye-opening because it's so much that you need to learn it in, sometimes we do one thing at a time and they are exhausted. And
So you basically take them to work. It's
taking
basically
to work,
take them
yes.
to work with you, and you've done that since they were, before
Yes,
they were
but
teenagers,
yes, and
essentially.
in different countries mean different things.
Right.
So in
Right.
Mexico, filing paperwork can be difficult and and somewhat tricky, and you need to know where to file it, when to
Right.
file it, and having the right paperwork to file it. So,
Right.
and if you're missing a little something, they say, you know what, you can file it because you are missing a signature, or you signed with the wrong ink color.
Color pen. Right.
Yes, it is. It is. Originals are signed in blue, and that little thing Alexis learned.
Right. And
Now she carries a blue pen because that's a way to sign.
one thing that I have loved about bringing Alexis into Realign at the beginning of this year, and just asking her essentially to work with me as in an executive assistant / marketing coordinator function. I just sort of opened the books to, hey, here's what we do, here's how we do it, here's the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that's really difficult, and
Mm-hmm.
where things get sort of stuck in the sand or in the pipeline a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just asked her, hey, what do you think is a different
Mm-hmm.
way, or maybe is there a better way to approach future clients, right? Potential prospective clients. And she's doing an amazing job um, uh, getting word out there,
Mm-hmm.
producing content. It was her idea to turn the TGO podcast from an audio to a video podcast.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing little, 30, 60 seconds video snippets um, with a with an with a creativity and a perspective that I would not. That's not mine. I wouldn't have come up with it. And
Mm-hmm.
she's doing it through the lens of a 24-year-old woman that is different from my lens, right? And I think
But you're
that's
letting her.
helping. I'm
But
letting
you're
her,
letting her,
and
and in most companies
mhm,
they don't let them. So
right,
you have to let them.
yeah,
They decided that we were going to develop an app.
hmm,
I do not know how to code. Julia is doing an amazing job coding it. I don't know how to code.
right.
I do other things for the app, but you have to let them.
You have to,
You
yeah,
have to. So colleges and companies, they need to let kids do their thing. You can put rules and
24-year-olds are not kids anyway. If you had called me a kid at age
well, I
24,
mean, not kids, but they're younger than you are,
sure,
and they know things that you don't know.
that's exactly right. That's
And I
exactly right.
see people just stopping them. And if you do stop this generation, you will be in a bad place in 10 or 15 years. The advancements will crash. So
Right.
I just let them do. Sometimes I'm uncomfortable because I don't know what I'm doing in the app, for example. I don't know what I'm doing, but it is a good thing to feel uncomfortable. It
That's never
it is
stopped us
really,
before, right? Now you have to be outside the comfort zone.
yeah.
Um, I think this is probably a good place to wrap it up for today in terms
Mm-hmm.
of how just uh, uh, this. I think it's a really important subject of how do we encourage young adults to not be discouraged by a tougher job
Market.
market than maybe
Mm-hmm.
you and I found at that same age. Um, and how do we encourage entrepreneurship? Because I think with the way the world is changing towards, gig economy,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
freelance, AI, being entrepreneurial and having just a growth mindset, an entrepreneurial mindset is so much more important for young adults today
Mm-hmm.
than it was for us back then. We could sort of get plugged into a machine
System.
that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, do that job for 5 years and that job for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going away.
Pensions
So
are gone.
what is gone?
Pensions are gone.
Pensions are long
Don't
gone.
count on one. No
Long
way.
gone.
Long
Long
gone.
gone. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Thank you, sweetheart. I love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of TGO Podcast. You can find all episodes on our podcast page at www.realign4results.com. You can find me, Benno, host of TGO Podcast, there as well. Just email Benno, BENNO, at realign4results.com. Let's keep growing.